Hey traders, this is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Tuesday, July 23rd, and this is your end of day recap. Sorry, a little bit late today. I was doing a webinar right after the close today, as we got some names and some news after the bell today. So first things first, I guess this Department of Justice inquiry with dropping some of these FANG names plus Apple after the close here today. So, do I think that this is anything to really worry about? I don't know. I mean, it could be if you like these names. It could be a little bit of a buying opportunity, maybe a buying opportunity, slight buying opportunity. This name's not down that much, Amazon, but it seems like this is a little bit of political stuff going on. Maybe some posturing for election stuff. Who knows if they're actually going to do anything? Maybe they give them small fines. I don't know. But anyway, that's this came out after the close today, so I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of it. Let's go through some of the names for earnings. That I'll tell you, most of these names that reported pretty solid numbers. It's pretty impressive, right? Chipotle is up to 767. It did hit an intraday all-time new high, so good numbers out of Chipotle. I think always when you look at a restaurant, you always look at like the sales, right? If the sales numbers are increasing, same store sales were up 10%. Oops, I don't want to bring up that, and I think that beat expectations. Where did I have my article? Sales rise along with prices, so it's continued momentum in this. So very good for CMG. The story that I want to get to, I think, is kind of a little bit under the radar, is what's been going on with medical device companies. Look at Edward Life Sciences printing 215. That's up $20 from where it closed. So real nice move. 215 is going to get you all-time highs, it looks like. So that's been going on with the whole group, right? Abbott had great. Now look at what Abbott did today. So Abbott has done very well. DHR had good numbers too. They haven't broken out yet, but maybe keep an eye on DHR because it's still locked inside value. But we're going to get a couple more tomorrow. We're going to get Boston Scientific and TMO. So we'll see if that trend continues. But geez, I think this is right now a really nice group to look at right now and maybe for the next couple months. So that Snap came out. I don't think Snap is going to be the inquiry, so they needed to get a back above value. The earnings move, they were implying a very big move, but looks like it is up $2 here. So nice move there in Snap. What else? There's another name. Texas Instruments, the semis continue, the semi strength. Unreal, right? I cannot believe it. And they were even buying some puts today in Lam Research, LRCX today, which doesn't look like that's going to work for them. But continue to watch these semis. Really, that's where the strength is. And I think Kramer said this. I apologize if it was someone else, but I think watching what the semiconductors do is more important than I know. Everybody looks at what Dow theory they like to see when the transports confirm the move in the industrials. I would be more inclined to say the semiconductors are more relevant these days than the transports, but that's just an opinion, and I like what he said. If I'm quoting him correctly, that is because I believe he said that on one of his shows or on TV, and it just made a lot of sense to me. But semiconductors are going to be ripping to all-time highs. It looks like even after being overbought. So very impressive, Texas Instruments. So where does that leave us? As we're getting through earnings, I think this week is the biggest week for S&P earnings. So, we've got a lot more names that report this week, but I mean, this price action I think is pretty impressive. We did open up 30 basis points in the S&P and we managed to kind of hang in there and finish higher. So, it is pretty amazing to me. I mean, even though I'm not seeing going into today, I wasn't really seeing a lot of setups materialize after this bearish engulfing, but it looks like we're trying to actually negate this whole thing here. So, be patient. And if you're not seeing a lot of setups, I think after today, I think what I'm looking at, it just happens to like come to you, right? If you're being patient and you don't see any setups for a couple days, the thing to do is not to force trades and not to overtrade. It's to try to wait till those setups come to you. I think the banks are kind of interesting here, right? This is I would say contrarian play at this point. But if you go through some of these charts, like look at BAC. BAC had a monster day today. It was up 2.3% today. So again, I think under owned the financials. I think people have really got tired of the financials, including myself. I didn't have any catalyst to be in there. So what would cause them? Next week we have a Fed meeting, right? So normally once they start reducing rates, that's not a positive for the banks. Those are short-term rates, right? But possibly this is priced in, right? The 25 basis points, which is now showing, and has been showing 100% chance that they cut rates by 1/4%. If that's all that they do, and they continue to say wait and see, I think that's priced into the market. So maybe the banks get a relief bounce. Also, keep an eye on this TLT. Remember, you gotta keep in mind, you have to separate between short-term rates, which the Fed controls, with basically open market purchases, whether they're not they're going to control and cut that interest rate and flood the market with liquidity. But they don't really control the long end. They do some things, right? There was the Operation Twist, and they're still doing some quantitative tightening with mortgage bonds. But take a look at what the pattern is here. And again, this, keep in mind, this is just basically just looking at something. It is not confirmed, but you kind of have a left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder. Now, I would be watching to see maybe if this breaks the 50-day moving average. But remember what happens here, the relationship. If TLT goes down, that means interest rates go up. That means the yield curve gets steeper. So we'll see if that materializes. That's something to watch. And if not, because this is kind of in no man's land right now, it's digesting gains. So it could either break, or it could break down, or it could break up. Right now, it's in no man's land. So something to watch and something to pay attention to, because I do think that could help the banks. But yeah, if you look at the weekly chart, so I showed the daily charts of Morgan Stanley. If you look at the weekly chart, this is just getting into value now, right? This faded pretty decently the first time it was in value, but I would pay attention to basically 44.36. I hate chasing right now in this market. It was up. Morgan Stanley was at 1%, but I did start a position in this. Goldman, which we looked at earlier today, Goldman is also, remember Goldman had a pretty decent quarter. They're now into value for the week. So, not something that you have to chase right now. I'm looking at the weekly chart, so this is a longer term type of view that I'm looking at in Goldman. But, if this thing happens to come back and checks back to 212, also keep in mind the week is not over. This is a developing bar, but I think pretty interesting looking. Let's just see how BAC looks. Of course, a couple leaders, which I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to, is look at Ally Financial breakout. I sold my last bit of Ally on earnings day, and it is now above that. So it's got continued strength here in Ally Financial, and a lot of positioning still going out in January calls, which they've got a big position in that one. Also, you look at U.S. Bancorp, which was brought to my attention by Helene Meisler on Twitter. This also breaking out here. So there's some things going on here that are pretty interesting in the financials. So it's got me. It's definitely got me interested. And a lot of these things, right? If you're purely technical, you could cover up the symbol and just look at the charts and make a decision. It's kind of what I'm trying to do here. By looking at some of the recent momentum in the banks. Let's also look at IWM, because that has the biggest portion of IWM is the banks. Still not showing me anything here, negative or positive. Probably a little bit more negative because it's not following the rest of the market. But keep an eye on this thing. 155.27. If you remember, because I always share not only the winners but the losers. Not everybody does that on who trades options. But IWM. So yeah, I tried this trade and I got stopped out of it. But hey, I'll get back into it, no problem, if it shows a little bit of maybe volume and a break higher here. Sorry to be a joker. And then what else? Then another name that we saw some option activity was in Emerson Electric. Notice this name won't have earnings for a couple of weeks, but we did see a little bit of August and a little bit of Jan call buying. I went long the stock in this one. Again, to find stop with this one 65.48. What else did I do today? Home Depot, I took some profits in this one. But I like this. I'm still holding a piece of this. I took profits right in the beginning of the day because that's what you do in this market. If there's some strength in the beginning of the day, you take some profits and then see where this market wants to go for the rest of the day. But I have no problem adding to it here because if this thing could actually bounce here, I think a great type of hurricane trade for the next couple months. All right, so that's Home Depot. What else did I do today? I lost a little bit of money in VMware today, which reversed. I did want to talk about that, even though the averages have been moving up. Really depends on what stocks you're in, right? Not everything is moving up because take a look at the board that I've got here from percentage change from open, right? The Chinese internet did very well. I took profits in JD. I've been holding this JD for a while, so I got a 3.9% up move on the catalyst of a face-to-face meeting, which we've all heard that before. So I took my money, even though I see my ultimate target was 32. For now, I'll just, being that I see a little bit better opportunities, now this JD will probably take off like a rocket. But in any event, it's a profitable trade and happy to get out with some profits in that one. But yeah, so that was your best performer from open to close, and of course that catalyst that there is going to be a face-to-face meeting. Materials also did very well, and we talked about the banks already, the financials. But take a look on the downside, solar names. I'm not sure what the catalyst was there, but they were down 1.8% from the open. They really got hit pretty hard. Home builders got hit on Pulte, IGV. Also, software, just finished down fractionally on the day. But look at what happened to the software names, right? By the way, this is natural. If you're worried about this, this is what happens to high momentum names, which a lot of these software names are. From time to time, they are going to see a little bit of a rotation out to and profit taking. It happens over and over and over. But usually what happens after a couple days is buyers step back in. Now, again, there also have been like a trade war hiding place because there's not much exposure to this group. You can't really tariff a software company, unless they haven't been creative enough to do it. But in any event, IGV just pulling back a little bit. Some of these names, I would love for some of these names to continue to, sorry to hear it if you're in some of them, to move down a little bit further. This Vive, I actually bought a little bit of this today, but it could go, let's face it, it could come down a little bit further. And a bunch of these names, right, have run a lot. So if these names happen to come in a little bit more, just stay open-minded because usually buyers come back into it. Keep in mind, ServiceNow reports after the close tomorrow. So we'll see what that does for the group. All right, guys, I will leave it there. Have a great night, everybody. But a lot of things to talk about, a lot of movers. And don't be afraid, again, in this market to sit a little bit on the sidelines and wait for some of these results to come out. And then, once you're starting to see signals materialize, then you can pounce and get back into trades. But nothing wrong with sitting out a little bit of, the earnings chop. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.